about SQL ingestion?
Yeah, so this one most interesting part from my perspective. First of all, it's pretty actually it's simple but very bad situation. It's a SOQL injection. What it means? Usually, Salesforce developer need to use not just static selection of your data, right? But some dynamic stuff. It calls dynamic SOQLs. It means that there is a string with a request to the database. It's okay situation actually, so it's you have ability to do that as a Salesforce developer. But there is a situation that, for example, you have a page, and on this page, user just puts some data there. For example, here we see that there is a filter for account. For example, you want to find some account by name, for example, or etc. So I created just a simple page. But there is a situation where you not properly sanitize or escape input from the user, and you have a dynamic SOQL. In this situation, probably you have a SOQL injection situation. It means that if some bad user have bad intentions there, he can just trick the SOQL request with this string and put there some commands in the where clause. It means that he can get access to all of your data, not just filter by name account, right? But it can get all the list of accounts.
So what do you do to avoid that?
Well, actually, I also want to mark here that also it's even worse if you have in controller without sharing. It means that even if you have controller without sharing, it means that it's just ignore all the sharings. It means that it reveals really all the data of your object, and it's apocalyptic situation actually. How you can fix that? First of all, you can use static SOQLs, but it's again where you can do that. You better to keep it static. But often there is a situation that you need to use dynamic SOQL. In this situation, in this particular situation, you need to be careful with the input from the user side. You need to properly escape it, sanitize it, probably even test it with some regexp. So you need to understand that this input from the user side needs to be very carefully inspected in the time of controller execution and in the transaction. So just keep focus on SOQL. If it can be static, keep it static. But if not, just properly sanitize the input from the user.
Let's talk about cross-site scripting and the issues that can cause.
Yeah, this one is also important to understand how it looks first. So you have an input page and you have an output page. For example, at the input page, you put some information about contacts, accounts, etc. And you have output page where you just show this to some other users. And this is two-side situation. So if attacker goes to your input page and put there some information, it's okay. It's a usual situation that you need to input some data. But for example, at account or at another custom objects, you might have description field. Description field as a rich text, for example. And rich text, it means that it might have some HTML or some another data, not just text.
So, and just to clarify here, this is in a scenario where somebody's interfacing externally with Salesforce, not through the Salesforce login. So it could be a communities thing, it could be an e-commerce page, it could be whatever custom code to integrate.
Actually, it's in configured orgs, it might be even email to logs. For example, somebody emails you a case, and there might be some attacking script, for example, and it goes to description of the case.
Got it. Okay, so we've got rich text here, and what's the risk of rich text then?
So if you not sanitize it properly first, it's a first point. You need to properly sanitize input. But okay, you have improper sanitized input. And attacker can put there not just usual text, right? He can bring their script tag. It means that he can execute some JavaScript. If you not sanitize it, it will be stored in your database. It's okay. You have this JavaScript, but it should be also executed. And it means that we goes to another side. It's an output page. So output page, it's about, for example, your internal users, your employees, can just open up some page to inspect those cases, accounts, etc. And in the situation where you have bad page, badly sanitized output, right, on this page, then this script might be just executed because it might be not visible there because you have a rich text.
Sure, it just looks like bold red text to me,
Yeah.
but I just executed some script.
Yeah,
Okay.
And the script actually might do almost anything, right?
Okay. So how do you avoid that?
You need to sanitize input, you need to sanitize output, and actually that's it. So you need to escape all the symbols in input, and you need to also filter, for example, again, script tag or some special characters there in output as well. So in the SOQL injections, we talked about only sanitizing input, but there is also important to provide output escaping as well.
So the important thing here is A, you identify that there's a risk here. B, you create a standard by which anybody who's writing any code that's interfacing with your Salesforce environment is supposed to adhere to. And then C, as part of the code review, as part of the QA process, we should be making sure that that's in there. And if you're doing all those things, you should be safe. The problem happens when developers aren't being checked, there aren't common standards, and they're probably doing things with the best of intentions, but they're leaving things exposed.
I want to mark here about some sort of pages. So on your organization, it might be a situation where you have some, for example, Visualforce page or page at community or something, page on community with, for example, lighting web components or Aura components, etc. And those pages sometimes can execute some actions when you load in the page. For example, it can update something from URL parameters, or something like a delete some record or create some record. When you just open the page, it might be just record already was created at this point. And sometimes, you get in parameters from URL to put some predefined data to those records. So it's a very dangerous situation, like from the start of understanding and implementing this stuff. Your pages always shouldn't execute any actions when you starting to load it. Why? So we comes to cross-site request forgery. For example, your page account, right? And you providing some URL with the predefined name, and people can just go by this URL, and some account will be created at this moment, right, with this predefined name. And okay, you have a login. Like it's only logged users can do that. Like your employees at internal interface can just go to this page. But this attack works like that. You goes to some another site, to another tab of your browser, and this page just trying to execute some request to your Salesforce organization, to this particular page. For example, somebody knows that this page is there, but he needs some login. So he had no ability to log in to your org, but he can attack the people from your organization if your user, like if your employee just opened this page and it's also logged in your user, in your organization. It means that if this attacker website trying to do request to your organization, it will do the action from
because
your
I'm
perspective.
a legitimate logged in user, and so it's effectively using me to access. So again, how do we prevent that?
It's a fairly situation where you, first of all, you shouldn't create any actions in time of loading of the page. It's the first. Second one.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's good idea also have some confirmations of your actions on the page. So for example, you want to create something or update something or something. For update, it's okay, but for delete and for create actions, probably it's good idea to re-ask user, like, do you really want to do that? Why? Because attacker with this sort of attack cannot do any JavaScript actions or on the organization page. He can just do requests and requests to the page. It's okay. You as a user just open some page, and it shouldn't bring any actions to your data, to your organization, etc.
So this sounds like a huge risk, because if I'm allowed to run a script at page opening and I have a user that has a high level of permission access, which is another reason to ensure that access controls are tight. If I've got a user that does that and that user goes to another website, they can essentially hijack that. So what you're saying is, by doing something as simple as don't run anything on opening of a page, and then B, pop up the "Are you sure?" Text box that we see on so many websites and people find are annoying. But just by doing something as simple as that, you can prevent that from happening. So what we need to again be doing is standardizing those practices, documenting those, training our users for that, and then as part of the review and the QA process, saying, okay, are we adhering to these standards? And if we do that, then we're relatively safe. So moving on here, let's talk, kind of wrapping up, how do we identify code-related vulnerabilities?
About code-related stuff, again, you need to just go through all of the code, all of the customizations, APIs, etc., all of your web services, and even for standard API, like a RESTful or SWAP, you need to just inspect how it configured as well. Again, you need to go through all of this. You need to go through all of the UI stuff, Visualforce, LWC, and Aura, and just inspect all of this with some sort of requirements that you have, some like again data model configuration or sharing CRUD-FLS security. You need to have it already from previous steps, and now you just go through the code with the same information and just understand where you have some vulnerabilities there.
So kind of moving on again, summarizing some of this.
From this one, it's like more in detail. We are looking at particular vulnerabilities, right? So we have a top 10, and we have some sort of the least not so oftenly faced vulnerabilities, but we need to have a list of those vulnerabilities, and we go through all of them, customizations and configurations, etc. And most important part, as I see from all of this, okay, so you go through the code, it's good, but then you need to test your organization in real life, I mean in real field. And it means that you need to execute penetration testing or pen testing. It means that specialists should go through all of your communities, all of your internal pages, and just try to bring and review some data there. Usually it executed in full sandboxes, so where you have all the data, all configurations, and you can just test security layers in live.
Okay. So do you want to talk more about pen testing here, or did you just kind of cover that and you want me to move ahead?
Well, it's fairly to mark here that at pen testing moment, we mostly testing API endpoints and web services, because this is main point of pen testing, and like it's a target for attackers, right? To get access through the APIs, actually, not from the pages. And it's most important to have strong API security with all of your web services, etc.